In today's podcast, I'm thrilled to introduce our guest, John Linkowsky, renowned cybersecurity expert and engineer. This podcast is all about keeping safe online. We'll talk about the big problems in cybersecurity, share some top tips, and give advice for anyone interested in this kind of work. Let's get started.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining another podcast. In this podcast, we are talking about some of the cybersecurity challenges. What are the cyber threats and what can be done? Are the best practices I need to implement? Or if you're a business, basically, if you're going to cloud, what are the misconceptions, what we see a lot of time, and how you can address that? They are simple, basic, some steps. Also, the subject matter I have has been in the industry for 30 years, Palo Alto expert and Cisco. So we're going to talk about career specific. We're going to talk about how different cybersecurity information roles are there. So that's being said, and I have John Linkowsky. John is CISSP. He's been in the industry, as I said, for 30 plus years. He's very active in Palo Alto network community. He has a lot of networking background, network security. He's also education chair for IS2. I'll just hold my breath and have John introduce himself.
Thanks, Adnan. So John Linkowsky, yep, I have been in the industry for about 30 years, probably 28, 29 years, so rounded up a little bit. Started out my career as doing support services and, kind of help desk kind of things. Got into doing more of network engineering and building out network support, doing network support, working with a network manager at the time where I was in my career because it was all new to him and he needed some help. And I said, hey, I'd like to learn this, and got into that and worked and did that for, I don't know, 15 years, more than that, maybe. And then that kind of encompassed doing security, firewall support, IDS stuff, building policy, firewalls, et cetera. And then somewhere, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago, that kind of split. So my career was a little bit less on the networking side and more on the security side. And that's kind of where I've been ever since. And I do a little bit, you always still need some networking background, so that certainly is not hurtful at all. Very, very beneficial for me in my career in that sense, and knowing both sides of the house. I also am a part-time professor at Mercer County Community College here in Jersey, so I've been doing that for about 25 years this semester. In fact, I start the spring semester tomorrow evening. Next semester starts. So I would teach the Cisco Academy through network engineering. We do support in terms of teaching, in terms of route switch, wireless security, everything else in between, everything Cisco related, wireless, pretty much everything, soup to nuts, protocols, routing, etc. And all that's good. In addition to that, as you mentioned, I do cybersecurity mentoring for ISC2. And from that, I branched out and got involved in doing cybersecurity mentoring for the CWA, or Cybersecurity Workforce Alliance, which partners with IQ4. We do a lot of mentoring. I've been doing that for about 3 years now. We do some mentoring for military who are coming into civilian life and want to get more involved in the cyber. They did that when they were serving our country, and now they want to get to that in the civilian life. And also there is a colleges that free training, so to speak. So they have colleges, and we do insider threat training. We mentor students and help them align with soft skills and also the cybersecurity skills, and doing presentation. We give them case studies and things like that. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
No, that's pretty good. And in a short time, you had like a whole 30 years. So again, those people who are watching, you can see the depth and width what we bring on this podcast. They are not typical podcasts. As I said before, most of the people who are on my podcast from the industry. So we go and develop and practice. We're all practitioners here. So I really, again, thank you, John. So I think really we were talking offline, and let's start this time something of the challenges, because what are the challenges like from the businesses and mid-sized businesses? Of course, big, large enterprise, they have a lot of money, a lot of budget. But again, there's a section of like 80-90% of the businesses, which is small businesses.
Sure.
And they may not have a budget to hire a dedicated person. I want to start with the importance of a strong password, right? It's one of those. I have another 3 more tips, which I will share. But let's talk about how important it is, and what could be the consequences if a business is not really practicing a strong or good password.
That's a good point, right? And I think passwords are like putting on seatbelts, right? All right, everyone knows to get in their vehicle, they put on their seatbelt. It should be second nature to everyone, right? Especially in 2024, or certainly for the last 20 years or so, right? Passwords are the same way in the sense that we know we have to set strong passwords. We have to make them not easily guessable, right? So you don't want to do things like your spouse's name, your dog's name, an anniversary date, very simple things like that. And believe it or not, there's still a majority of people out there. It's published every year, Verizon Security Report, other reports, Unit 42, et cetera, where people use password 1234, or they use welcome 1234, or some combination thereof, something that's easily guessable. It's known that if the longer the password is, the harder it is to guess. The more combinations of passwords that you use in terms of numbers, uppercase, lowercase, symbols, it's harder to guess. And in fact, I think we have to stop thinking of passwords as passwords and think of using more passphrases, right? Think of some sort of statement that you might know, something that you can think of for yourself. I like watching soccer. I like watching football, and then change some of the letters and the names, some of the letters and symbols into symbols and uppercase and lowercase and mix it around. That's not really dictionary attackable, right? You can't use rainbow tables and things that are out there in the wild to necessarily attack those things. So for an example, if you have a 12-character password and you're using a combination of letters, uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and symbols, a 12-character password would take about 35,000 years to break in a typical hacking scenario, right? If you use a password that is 6 characters and you use that same combination of letters, passwords, it could be cracked in probably about 5 to 7 seconds.
Yeah.
So you see the length there. I'm doubling the length, and I've added literally 34,000 years to it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be some sort of complex, long thing that you can't remember and you have to write down or look up every time. It should be some sort of phrase in your mind that you know that you can recite and just know which letters that you're changing. And then modify that. So it doesn't matter if you're a big company, small company, educational institution, whatever, or even you and I for our own personal side of things. We should use complex passwords. Not only that, but we should also use MFA or multi-factor authentication everywhere and anywhere possible, anywhere humanly possible. Certainly on things like your banking and anywhere that your PII or personal identifiable information is going to be exposed or potentially given out. Your address, your phone number, Social Security, banking information is clearly anything like that. We all do things on our phones. Everybody has one of these devices. I don't care if you're an Android person or you're an iPhone person. We all do it. We all have the apps there. We all do our banking there. We all do our, maybe make our, log into our insurance, stuff like that. Passwords is one thing, but MFA or multi-factor, use Google Authenticator, use Duo, use some sort of multi-factor authenticator. I don't care if it's even for your Amazon account, right? Amazon can do multi-factor, and it is critical. People say, it's another step I have to do. Yeah, well, it's another step to protect your data and your information. Certainly anything where you do anything financial, you're going to want that. And anything, again, with that PII, personal identifiable information, or credit card financial, you're going to want that. So again, just closing that gap is that having those passwords set and changing them regularly, right? Someone I read, and I don't know who quoted it, but it's passwords are like underwear. Change them often, and always use a new one, right? So I'm sure someone, I certainly is not me. I'm not taking credit for it, but it's funny, but it's easy to remember, right? Because it's funny. And you don't want to wear the same pair of underwear, and you want to change them very frequently. That's what we say about passwords. And the only thing I'd add to that is make them longer and complex. So
right. Again, yeah, that's no rocket science, as everybody can do it, and pretty much these services are available from every banking, financial. So there's no reason for financials. You mentioned about personal identification, the information. So it's an extra step, but this is the lifestyle we live in today.
Let's take it a step further, right? So we're all familiar with the new surge of artificial intelligence, AI, large language models. This is nothing new to us in technology, right? We've heard about it. Everybody's hearing about it. Everyone's writing about it. ChatGPT, Bard, et cetera, et cetera. I don't care anything about. I mean, I do care, but the models aren't important for this. What it is now is the deep fakes, right? So the deep fakes are what's being very scary, because The deep fakes are where you are having phone calls that are automated using AI, using someone else's voice. That could be your child's, a spouse's, a parent, something like that, where they're using deep fake tools and technologies that are all freely available, by the way. You and I can go out and do it right now. I don't have to pay big bucks to do it. Here's the issue, is that a lot of these things, and it started out as what they called a grandparent scam, right? So the grandparent scam is, my son or my daughter happen to call my in-laws or something and say, hey, grandma, my car broke down and I need $300 to get a tow, and I don't have the money. Could you please wire it to me? Well, the first thing grandma and grandpa is going to do is say, of course, I'm going to help you. Of course, I'm going to do it. I will wire this money, $300. It's not the end of the world. And the money's gone. Obviously, that's a scam. And it preys on grandparents. That's why it kind of was called that. It can happen to anybody, by the way. So it doesn't mean you have to be a grandparent. So here's the thing, adding on to our password conversation, is something I do with my own family, and we have done with my in-laws and the grandparents in my family, is we set up a family password. So God forbid there is a real situation where one of my kids or my nieces happen to call my in-laws and say that they're in an emergency situation. We have a family password that is used amongst them. So my in-laws know to ask for that password. It's just something we only know. It's something not easily guessable, but it's something our family knows. And that would prove to my in-laws that it is really one of their grandchildren calling. And it's safe. It's good to do this because it's another layer of protection, because an AI isn't going to be able to deep fake guess the password that my family has verbally talked about and we've all memorized. It's one word, simple and easy. And it's something that I suggest, it's something that's good to have for your family because of the stuff happening with AI now. So it just takes that password thing another level, right? People aren't going to be able to guess your family password when it's something that's just verbal, not written down, or electronic. So just to add to that.
No, I literally I put a video on this similar topic a few days ago, and I kind of put the image with the generative AI and build in a story that, because the deep fake is now going to the next level, not to the voice, is going to the image, the video.
Absolutely. Yes, it is.
And
yes.
One of the PhD researcher from Google, or one of those guys, I was doing some research, I don't remember who exactly. It will be in the very future very difficult to figure out what's the original and what's the defect one. And this is where what you just mentioned, to have your family passphrase is going to help.
Absolutely.
No, that's very important thing, because this is going to be the more craziness in 2020.
It is. And by the way, this is something we're across the Rubicon, right? This is now, we don't know what we don't know yet. And the way AI technology is evolving on a daily basis, and I mean daily, it's very hard to keep up for anybody, a security practitioner or anybody in technology, let alone those that are, let's just call them non-security professionals. So it's going to be very difficult. Your average everyday, Jane and Joe citizen aren't going to realize that, oh, wait a minute, you mean these things can actually happen and we could have these things happen. They're not they're not aware of them yet. So it's only going to increase, unfortunately.
So here's one more tip I want to give it to people who are still watching. The companies do a lot of backup. What I've seen, they never test it. So if you're one of those companies, make sure when you perform the backup, do have a practice of restoring it every quarter or every 6 months, depending your business, what's the risk, what type of data is there. But again, make sure you test your backup, especially in the cloud environment. It's very easy. You can set up the VM, whichever the scenario is. It's one of the tip I wanted to give people, just make sure. So
not only that, but you want to validate your data, right? So you can restore that. And if you pick a random server or random, something that you're restoring, whatever happens to be for your organization, now you need to validate that data is proper, is correct, that nothing has been manipulated. We need to secure data in motion. We need to secure data at rest, right? So if it's at rest in a cloud storage area, that's fantastic. It's modern. It's here. But now when we restore it, we want to make sure that what we're restoring is exactly what we initially set up there, and nothing was manipulated, either while it was at rest or in motion. So I think that is and also just testing your backups and restore is a number one priority. Number two is validating that data is in fact the correct data when it comes back, and nothing has been manipulated, either, obviously for the negative. So I think that's important to understand.
And literally, we gave you a tip how to deal with ransomware free of cost.
Free of cost, exactly right.
So that's one of the tip and takeaway. And third is before we gonna move into the career and all that. So we're gonna talk about it. One more point is I want to make sure, or we want to call out, is about misconception, because the companies think they move to the cloud. And literally, I was reading something on Reddit yesterday, and there was somebody, they were like, perception is still companies think they move to the cloud. Though no, it's the cloud service provider responsibility to take care of data secure. But this is the biggest mistake that you can have, because end of the day, it's your data, right? You
100%.
own it. You're responsible for it.
Right, exactly. So, if you have stuff like IaaS or infrastructure as a service, where they own the they own the servers, they own the hardware, they own the security stack, even everything, that data that still lives in their cloud, whether it's AWS or it's Google or it's Azure, it doesn't matter. It does not matter where it is. That data is still yours. You own it. You have to validate it. You have to make sure that it's clean. Whatever is up there is your responsibility. They're just basically, it's basically like, you could equate it to saying, well, I parked my car in this public parking garage, and someone next to me, dinged my door when they got out of their car. That's not the parking garage's fault. It's the fact that you parked crooked, or you didn't park properly, or the other person was hastily and got in and out. Maybe it's a silly analogy, but the point being is the parking garage did nothing wrong. Your car is stored there, but you didn't take care of your data properly, or you parked improperly, you parked in the wrong spot, etc. Or you parked your large vehicle in a small parking spot. You didn't follow the rules, so to speak. It's your responsibility. So again, a silly analogy, but it kind of makes the same sense. You're absolutely right.
It's a shared space, basically, so you cannot blame somebody. It's a shared space, shared model. So what you have to do is just make sure you put your data out there. Again, it's your responsibility. Only thing what you're not managing is underlying physical hardware. So you don't have access to the routers and switches and all the wire and all those things. But end of the day, you have tight security controls around that, and every provider has that. So something you gotta be careful and think about it. So that's what we talked a lot about, industry and threats and how businesses can take these steps. And I've seen you're also pretty busy and pretty active in Palo Alto user groups and communities, same Microsoft I'm involved with. So I want to talk about it. And the reason I brought it up is specifically Palo Alto, because of vendor specific, and they're known. So definitely, when it comes to in the market for the people in the career, they got to have some skills. So shed some light on that, and also about the ISC2 mentorship stuff, and then we see if we can cover in a few short minutes.
Sure. So for Palo Alto, I'm involved with Palo Alto because my organization, and I've used Palo Alto firewalls and their product security suite products for many years. And within my organization, I'm a SME, or a subject matter expert, with the Palo Alto. And I've been involved with the Fuel User Group since its inception, which was, I believe, like 2013, 2015. I don't remember, but it, almost 10 years ago, give or take. And it started out as a very small organization and has grown to something obviously very large. And I applied to be, there was an open position on the board of directors back in 2019 or 2020, maybe, I can't remember exactly, apologize. And I applied for it, and you have to be a member, and then you went through an interview process, and then other board members, et cetera, and I was elected to the board on a 2-year term, and then was back in December of 2022, I was elected as the vice president of the board for the worldwide community, the Fuel User Group. So it's in a process right now. The Fuel User Group for Palo Alto is in a flux right now. It's changing over to being more. It was independent from Palo Alto. So the user group community was separate from Palo Alto. That's all fine and well. And now what's happening is those two are kind of starting to merge together a little bit more, where Palo Alto is becoming more involved instead of having Fuel as an independent entity. That's a good thing. I find it to be good, because now we have the power of we have the power of Palo behind us. And Palo's been very supportive for Fuel. They're absolutely supportive, no question about that. They're full support of it. But they've always kept it as an independent entity. That's coming along, and that's well. And there's a lot of activity in their live community and within the Palo Alto user community. There's a lot of stuff ongoing, and the reason is because Palo just was a firewall company years ago. When I first started working with Palo Alto as a customer, they just made firewalls, and they made very good firewalls, layer 7 firewall. Now they have security suites, cloud, they have everything, and everything integrates, and that's what makes them very, very powerful in that sense, because you literally can build things in a stack with just licensing as opposed to buying more and more and more hardware. So that's kind of the good thing. The ISC2, so again, being a member of the ISC2, I keep wanting to say ISC squared because they changed their name, as you know, everyone knows. It's still stuck in my head. So when I joined the New Jersey chapter a few years back, I don't know, 4 years back, so I joined as a member of that and started participating. That the New Jersey chapter has grown extensively in the last 3 or 4 years. It's fantastic. I believe we have close to 500 members. It's the largest chapter in North America, and it's very, very powerful size. It's growing. We have a lot of great members. And in October, I was asked to join the board as the education chair. They had an education piece, but as I mentioned at the top of the conversation, I'm involved a lot with education and doing the mentoring. So I wanted to take this in a kind of different direction. So Ken Fishkin, who was our president, nominated me to be on that, and I was voted in to be the chair, the education chair. And we have now, on just the committee for education, we have about 8 people just since the end of last year that have reached out and said, I want to be involved. So we're having kind of monthly meetings to kind of get ourselves rolling and moving through. And the idea of the education piece for ISC2 in our chapter is 2 things. One is that we want to educate the community in cyber, stuff like you and I have been talking about. We want to make sure people, everyday people, not just businesses, but everything from mom and pops, individuals, through schools, through higher education, small business, medium business, communities, police and fire, anything that involves people that use connectivity, that has connectivity, and security needs to be a concern. I don't care who you are. I don't care what, we want to educate them and help. This is free, right? We want to do this as part of our charter. Number 2 is we want to also continue to educate our own members and how we can better improve ourselves. What things do we want to learn as cyber technologists and improve our skill sets? So we have a lot planned for 2024, and I'm looking really forward to keep it moving forward. So it's a great organization, and I'm very, very proud to be part of it. So.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, definitely. So I just want to add here also, those who are in New Jersey, definitely, we do a lot of on-site or what you call face-to-face social events and meetup. We had a lot of 4 or 6 last year. We're going to have a lot more this year. So if you're in Jersey, definitely make sure you attend one of those. And I mean, there is no alternate for meeting in person. I'm a strong believer in that. The best connection I've ever made is just meeting in person, regardless. And this is one of the podcasts is the outcome of that. So you never know whom you're gonna meet, and that's the biggest opportunity. Whether you're experienced, whether you're new, whichever the case is, make sure find a local chapter, become a member. It's paid, but it's worth it. And then it will open a lot of opportunity and grow your social network. Before we close or this today's podcast is. Misconception. One of the biggest misconception of cybersecurity engineer role is like think of it as a guy in the hoodie. It's just like a hacker. I mean, there are more than 10 roles. You and I can talk to spend an hour. What those roles are, right?
There's dozens and dozens. And what I mean by that is that cybersecurity, you think of it as an over a tent or an umbrella or something. Underneath there's dozens of different careers under cybersecurity, right? So you have SOC analysts, you have blue team, red team, you have engineers, you have threat analysts, you have governance and risk compliance people that, believe it or not, fall under cybersecurity in most cases. You have people who just do nothing but malware and threat analysis all day, every day. You have firewall engineers, et cetera. So I equate it to if someone were to ask you, if someone were to have a conversation, you meet somebody, you're at an event, and somebody says, "Oh, hi, I'm John. What do you do?" And that person says, "Oh, well, I'm in the medical field." Well, the next question you're going to always say is, "Oh, well, what do you do in the medical field?" Because we all know that the
True.
medical field has hundreds of jobs. Well, I'm a
Yeah.
phlebotomist, I'm an X-ray technician, I'm a nurse, et cetera. That's the same analogy I use for cybersecurity. So if somebody
Exactly.
comes to me and says, "Oh, I'm in cybersecurity," I say I'm a cybersecurity engineer or a cybersecurity architect. I kind of have a dual role, and this is what I do. Create this, build this, et cetera, et cetera. And they get a more granular understanding. You could just say you're in cybersecurity, and that's the 10,000-foot view, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing as if you said someone, I'm a pilot. Well, are you a pilot for the military? Are you a commercial airline pilot? Are
Yeah.
you a FedEx pilot? Do you fly helicopters? You could be a chopper pilot, right? They're all
Yeah.
pilots, but they're very specific to the aircraft and the device they fly. So again, it's just an analogy to kind of explain. So when people think, "Well, how do I get started in cybersecurity?" I go, "Well, what do you like to do in cybersecurity?"
Yeah.
"Well, what do you mean? What do I like to do?" I go, "Well, what do you like? Do you like working with people? Do you like working on your own? Do you like getting your involved in the bits and bytes of what's going on through the wire? Or do you care about, looking for threats and malware and things like that? Or do you want to do all the governance and risk, and which is I call it quote unquote paperwork, right? There's more to it than that. I'm just being very generic, but there's a lot of policy and written policy that has to go with that. Now, there's a huge place for that. Obviously, it's needed, but some people might go, I want nothing to do with that. I want to do more hands-on stuff. So again, it's a vast amount of
Yeah.
careers underneath the cybersecurity umbrella.
I think, the understanding has to be there. We live in ChatGPT, so don't come with the high level question. I want to start
I
it.
know.
Do homework and find your interest, whether you want to
Absolutely.
be hands on break and fix,
Yes.
want to get into that, or you want to go to a different side of it. As I said, there are so many different
Yeah.
directions within the career, and be specific about it. And time has gone where you can just have a very one high level and you get into the cybersecurity. Now you have to find your niche within that area. Like, what
100%.
exactly you just said you want to do
Cloud
in cybersecurity,
security, do you want to do ethical hacking? Do you want to
right?
do,
Pen test,
penetration testing?
yeah,
Exactly. Right. And there's some cool factors to a lot of that. I mean, you might just want to do network design or
right,
security design and engineering. You could do that working for a company that does that for customers, or you could
yeah,
do it for your own individual company that you work for. So it really, I don't want to say it's unlimited. It's certainly not. There's a limit, but it's not two things or one thing. It's dozens of different areas.
right,
And everything, just like in the medical field, using that same analogy, everything has its own um, specific knowledge, right? You have to know more about this if you're in GRC and compliance, or you have to know more about this if you're doing pen testing. Or certainly ransomware and malware and threat analysis, those kind of things. They all
so
require different skill sets.
career advice, right? This is the
hmm
common question. People struggle with experience versus the qualification. They may have qualification, but they have difficulty finding a job.
In my opinion, I think it's a balance. I think it's very good to have the education side and maybe some certifications, not a truckload of certifications, not more certifications than you can put after your last name on a signature. I'm talking about one or two solid certifications. Maybe it's certified ethical hacking. Maybe it's a CISSP. Maybe it's Security Plus. Maybe it's the CC certification, which is new from ISC2 and it's free. There are a lot of different certifications out there that you can get, but focus on one. Don't try to accomplish them all. From a job point of view, I think a lot of people that I've talked to during the mentoring sessions that I've done, a lot of people go, "Well, I'm looking for this particular job and I want it to be at this particular location, and I only want to work this time, and I want to work this hours, but no one's getting back to me." And I find that it comes down a lot of times to the person and what they are willing to do. And in my case, my advice is, if you really want to be involved in security, you need to get involved in IT at some point. If you're working at the help desk and you're running around replacing keyboards and monitors, start there. Start there, get your foot in the door, build yourself a name. The next thing you know, you're being asked to do projects, or the next thing you know, you're being involved in bigger projects and activities within your organization. And the next thing you know, then maybe you're able to branch off into something else. Oh, by the way, I have this certification, and it can absolutely help you.
Right.
I think that's it. Try to get a job in IT at any level and work your way from there, because all the experience counts. I don't care, no matter what. It all counts.
No, so yeah, we'll close on that note. Just get any job in the field of IT, and we
agree.
have covered
Yep.
some best practices, mentorship. So go back, watch the video for the tips for the businesses. Go back, watch the video. We have put the tips. So a lot of stuff we have covered. We have gone above more over time, but again, this is a lot of stuff that cannot be covered in a call like this. But John, again, I really appreciate it and thank you. And we'll see you in our next podcast.
Thanks, Adnan. Really appreciate the time. Thank you so much.